After over 300 years of dominance, and having even kings swear loyalty to them, the Viking Age came to an end. How was it that one incident in particular led to this outcome? In today's video, we'll talk about the one famous battle that led to the end of the Viking Age. We'll show you what led up to this great battle and tell you all about the men who fought in it. The Vikings' beliefs and worldview had always encouraged them to live boldly, aiming for success and fame, or to die trying. Naturally, they pursued the former with steady zeal. This strong mentality motivated most of their raids and actions during the Viking Age. The Vikings were known for their bold battle strategies, skills, and bravery, which made them a scary enemy. They started with small raids on coastal villages, but soon set their sights higher, becoming a force to instill fear far and wide. They were simply unstoppable. It wasn't until 1066 that their reign of terror was seriously challenged. Many people today think that the Norman conquest of England was just about the Battle of Hastings. However, 3 weeks before that famous battle on September 25th, 1066, there was another crucial battle involving the Anglo-Saxons. This battle was just as important and was one of the factors that led to England's defeat by William the Conqueror. But how did it all start? Edward the Confessor was King of England from 1042 to 1066 and was one of the last Anglo-Saxon kings. During his rule, the most powerful noble was Earl Godwin. Godwin had two sons, Harald Hardrada and Tostig Godwinson. Earl Godwin controlled Wessex, the richest area in England, and commanded a large military force that King Edward relied on heavily. Godwin and King Edward soon had a significant disagreement when the king chose to appoint a Norman, Robert of Jumièges, as the Archbishop of Canterbury. This decision went against Godwin's wishes and led to a major fallout. As a result, the entire Godwin family was banished, but they didn't stay away for long. In 1051, they returned with a military force demanding King Edward restore Tostig's earldom. Tostig was then made the Earl of Northumbria. But Tostig didn't quite live up to the role. By October 3rd in 1065, the people of Yorkshire could no longer cope with Tostig's rule. They rose up, marched to York, took over the city, and declared Tostig an outlaw due to his many unlawful actions. They wanted Morcar to take over as their leader. The rebels took their case to King Edward, and Harald Godwinson, Tostig's brother, was sent to negotiate. After hearing the people's complaints, it became evident that Tostig could no longer lead Northumbria. Harald convinced King Edward to accept the rebels' demands, leading to a change in leadership. As you may have guessed, this got Tostig angry. When King Edward the Confessor finally died in 1066, a major battle for the throne of England followed, drawing attention from all over Europe. The big problem? Edward didn't have an heir, and there were many stories about who he had chosen to succeed him. Harald Godwinson, the Earl of Wessex, who had become Edward's brother-in-law, was one of the main contenders, but there was another twist. Edward had spent much of his early life in Normandy and had strong connections there, including with William of Normandy, a distant cousin. William claimed that Edward and even Harold had promised him the throne, a statement Harold's supporters in England denied. This was what set the stage for the Great Battle of 1066. Harald Godwinson was crowned king in a grand ceremony at Westminster on January 6th. However, this move upset two other powerful claimants to the throne, William of Normandy and Harald Hardrada, the scary Viking. Harold's crowning also worsened his rift with his brother. Tostig held a grudge against Harald because just the previous year, with Harold's backing, Tostig had been removed as the Earl of Northumbria. Seeking support, Tostig left England with his family and a few loyal followers to find refuge with his brother-in-law, Count Baldwin V of Flanders. But Tostig wasn't just looking for a safe space to stay, he had bigger plans. He reached out to Duke William of Normandy, hoping to join forces for an invasion of England. William was interested, but he needed more time to prepare. Impatient and driven by a desire for revenge, Tostig took another direction. He met with King Harald Hardrada through a friend named Kopsig. Tostig shared an old agreement with Harald that went back to the days of their predecessors, Magnus the Good of Norway and King Harthacnut of England. This pact stated that if either ruler died without an heir, the other would inherit England and Norway. Using this, Tostig argued that Harald also had a legitimate claim to the English throne and promised to back Harold's attempt to conquer England if Harald would help him reclaim his lost earldom of Northumbria. King Harald saw the opportunity and agreed to the plan. Armed with their combined forces, they launched an invasion of England. Their timing seemed too great as they caught the local defenders off guard. Tostig and Hardrada's forces met and defeated the English army at the Battle of Fulford on September 20th. King Harald II was watching out for Duke William of Normandy's expected invasion of southern England when he received troubling news that the Vikings had claimed victory at Fulford. This put King Harald Godwinson in a tough spot. He faced a serious decision. Should he march his troops north to confront Hardrada before the Norwegians could strengthen their grip on Yorkshire, or should he stay in the south, preparing defenses against the expected invasion from William? King Harald, however, recognized the serious threat posed by the Norwegian victory in the north, and so, within just 2 days, he gathered a strong army of 15,000 men. Meanwhile, Hardrada's Viking forces had been strengthened by additional warriors recruited by Tostig Godwinson. Without wasting time, King Harald led his predominantly foot-soldiered army across an incredible 185 miles in just 4 days to face the Vikings. But before the battle, a mysterious rider approached the Viking camp alone, speaking directly to Tostig. This lone envoy offered to restore Tostig's earldom if he would betray Hardrada. Curious about what Harald would offer the Viking king, the man replies, 7 feet of English ground, as he is taller than other men. This hinted that the only land Hardrada would receive from Harald was enough to bury him. Tostig told Harald afterwards that the rider was King Harald himself, but at that moment, Hardrada and Tostig, still celebrating their victory at the Battle of Fulford, were expecting nothing more than hostages from nearby York. They were unprepared for the storm that was about to hit them. The English army came with incredible speed, and Harald Hardrada's Vikings only realized Harald's forces were nearby when they saw them charging toward their camp. The English soldiers capitalized on this advantage and launched a sudden, fierce attack downhill straight into the enemy camp. Just 6 days after the Battle of Fulford, this battle happened at Stamford Bridge. King Harald led his forces to a great victory that day. This surprise tactic was devastatingly effective. The Vikings, unprepared and under-equipped, stood little chance against the English army. The battle was fierce and brutal, and Harald Hardrada and Tostig Godwinson met their ends in the thick of the fighting. Harald was struck down by an arrow to the throat, a fatal shot made possible because the Vikings had left their chainmail aboard their ships. Despite this and another offer of peace from his brother Harald, Tostig chose to continue the fight, motivated by the arrival of Viking reinforcements. However, these reinforcements were already weary from their journey and were defeated too, with Tostig among those killed. In the aftermath, only a small group of survivors managed to escape. Remarkably, from the original fleet of 300 ships, only 24 were needed to carry the few who survived back to Norway. Crazy stuff, huh? This battle is viewed as one that marked the end of the Viking Age. King Harald achieved a remarkable victory at Stamford Bridge, but it came at some cost. His forces were reduced by a third. With little time to rest, Harold then led what remained of his army on another forced march. Just 4 days after their previous battle, they headed south to face Duke William of Normandy. This next confrontation would take place near the southern coast of England and overshadowed the Battle of Stamford Bridge, but it was that battle that challenged the fear of the Vikings for good. Under normal circumstances, Harold's triumph at Stamford Bridge would have been celebrated as one of the greatest military feats in English history. However, the shadow of the upcoming clash at Hastings was larger. The outcome of that battle, occurring just 3 weeks later, ultimately defined Harold's legacy. Today, the site of the Stamford Bridge battlefield is not well preserved, with parts of it lying underneath the modern village of Stamford Bridge, and the remainder covered by actively farmed land. But now you know what happened there.